my first thing is, now that we are facing this crisis, I think we should say it's a great opportunity today to exploit silver linings in the dark clouds which are there, and we should not let it go waste. If you look at tourism from an India perspective, 73 years ago, when the Republic was formed, tourism was non-existent. And it's only been in the last 30 years, since 90s, which has actually seen the growth of travel, tourism, aviation, and the restaurant sector. So tourism has languished as a state subject. Today, I think it is high time for us to get tourism to move to the concurrent list. Not only is it a 10% contributor to GDP and employment, but per dollar invested, tourism generates more jobs than auto, technology, or financial services. And today, when India is facing a challenge of 1 million people getting released into the workforce every month, if we don't solve this problem today, then we are just ignoring a sitting time bomb. Now, what's happened, as others have also said, that because the contribution of India to tourism is only a 3 decades phenomenon, it's traditionally being seen as elitist in a republic which has had socialistic moorings. What we need to project it is at par with infrastructure. And even if when we see the growth of the travel tourism sector in United States, it happened actually in the 70s and 80s. Those 2 decades under both Democrats and Republicans, when highways and stateways were getting laid, the motel sector also grew, because tourism and travel is essentially focusing on two very basic biological needs: the need to eat and the need to sleep. Now, if you have highways and ports and humans are not taken care of, how will this succeed? Tomorrow somebody invents a drug where you take a pill and you can sleep once in 48 hours, our occupancies will crash 50%. So we have to say tourism is par with infra A, B is infrastructure, and it is concurrent. And also, more importantly, we have to use the voting strength of the sector. There are 50 million people that the overall sector employs, supporting 250 million Indians. So the vote bank of 250 million Indians has to be used to move tourism to the concurrent list. And if we don't do it, the alternate specter of 250 million Indians left to fend for themselves is a social nightmare that no cost would be good enough to defray. Now, immediately, what could happen? Two things at the central level and two at the state. First, at the central level is that all the current loans, they should get a moratorium of 2 years, and banks don't even have to do rating because these are already credit approved. The second is GST collection by any industry, not just tourism. It could be auto, across. There has to be a mechanism of GST discounting by banks for working capital, so that effectively industry is able to access funding on its capability, which could be LIBOR plus 2 or 3 percentage points. And at the state government level, two things. First is, for at least 1 year, property tax has to be held in abeyance. And the second is that electricity has to be charged at industrial rates. Okay, Dilip, what I want to do is first quickly do a reality check and then see what can we do. See, the reality is that any economy runs on 4 fundamental wheels of demand, supply, capital, and labor. So COVID has sucked out demand, supply is obliterated, and capital today is not looking at returns, it's just looking at protection. And labor has been left facing unemployment. So effectively, we are looking at the 4-wheeled economy being transformed into a bicycle. And what Rajiv was alluding to, if we look at our 4 major demand segments, which is MICE, we look at our corporate travel, leisure, and international. MICE is going to get wiped out 80% for the next 2 to 3 years. Weddings will provide some succor. Corporate travel is going to fall down at least 25%, if not higher. International visitors to India will drop 80%. The only survivor is going to be leisure, also bolstered by the fact that our 20 million outbound for the foreseeable 2 to 3 years, they are not going to be traveling outbound. So what is the overall meaning of this? That if you look at 2019, if I know this is a very simplistic picture, we are not looking at more than a 50% occupancy through these regular channels. This means there is going to be massive yield compression for the next 5 years. We will need 2 years to regain occupancy, 2 years subsequent to regain pricing, and year 5 only be profitable. Now, I'm not Nostradamus, and I hope that this time period is shorter. And the way I see recovery is three-pronged. First is going to be leisure destinations, which are 4 to 6 hours of driving distance from their source markets. Second would be metro hotels, and at the tail end, laggards would be tier 2 hotels. So what is it that we can do? So people who still want to be running hospitality assets, it's critical that we renegotiate our fixed lease rentals to variable. Or if the developer has deployed construction finance, go to a hybrid structure, which is an MG to meet his LRD and then variable. Separately, in many markets which are under distress and demand horizons are very long, we should look at opportunities to lease, to repurpose, and to convert. Now, leasing could be short-term leasing to corporates who are looking at expanding satellite and distributed facilities, because even corporates don't want to put too many people in too compact square footage. And then repurpose to long stay rental accommodation like co-living, student housing, or rental housing for senior living. And also access to conversions could be hospitals and daycare centers. Now, to do all of this, while capital access would be tough, but it would be relatively easy versus delivering margins, because delivering margins in this environment is going to be very tough. So whether it is a repurpose or existing, I think we'll have to refresh our costs and especially look at our top 5 heads, which is people costs, our distribution costs, energy, water, and waste costs. These are going to hugely rise. And each of our businesses has to say that how are we going to use capital and technology as arbitrage to drop OPEX and improve efficiency. Along with that, we have been a very insular industry compared to others. Even if you look at banking services or tech services or even now auto or design, we have to start co-opting the gig economy into our business models if we want to survive. First of all, when we look at different stakeholders, the way I see it is that this crisis is going to lead to a shift in the entire holding structure of the industry, because we'll have to separate asset ownership from management and distribution, which has not hugely happened in India so far, because these are different competencies and each have a different frame of returns. This means that institutional capital is going to play a larger role in the overall sector, because it can also defray risk better, and also the underlying asset is fungible across different types of use. Separately, I think this is a great opportunity for stressed asset funds to build a high quality portfolio who are ready to take a negative carry of 3 to 4 years into account. And along with this, I think we all need to realize that the way that the world is progressing and our population is increasing and the global connect and different aspirations of different societies in Maslow across, right-wing theories, this and that, these crises are going to keep on emerging and accelerating. Historically, if we've had such crises once in a century, and we've been witnessing it move to once in a generation, we have to be ready to face these kind of crises once in a decade now. And all of our businesses, not hospitality, we have to have a risk doctrine which will say that across 5 key crisis factors, how are our businesses going to respond? It could be pandemics, it could be terrorism, a water and food crisis, a war, or climate change. And what we have seen is, if we've been appealing to the government to dole us out, the government cannot do it right now. So even the government has to have a fund there. Now, how does India create a fund? How does India get a reserve fund? It will be fantastic if now we say, we change Ind AS and say each company has to contribute 1% of its top line into the India Reserve Fund, and the accounting standards treat this contribution as an expense. So what it effectively means is that the effective cost of 1 rupee is 70 paisa, and this will earn interest similar to a PF. And the government will contribute 0.5%. So if the industry gives 1, the government gives 0.5%. So, and it will have a two-pronged advantage. First, this will create a sovereign fund for India, which as a republic we still don't have. And it will build a capital cushion for the industry to access in a crisis. And we can then specify withdrawal or overdraft caps. Example, large cap, we may say will withdraw 0.75 to 1, MSME will get to do 1:1, and micro and small industries will get a withdrawal or an overdraft of 2:1. Last point on employees. Personally, if I look at it, I would say that this is a good reiteration that we have to all focus on our fitness and health. We are all born with expiry dates. One day we will all disappear. I just hope that my last 10 years, I am not dependent on somebody and I'm not visiting hospitals. My wish is I should just be able to announce my date of departure, close my eyes and go. That will be nirvana. And professionally, I think it's a good reiteration to everybody that we need to keep on constantly upskilling ourselves. Whether it is into an adjacent industry or adjacent competencies if we are mid-career, or to look at alternate options if it's the start of a career, even pick up a language. So I think this crisis is a great time for personal reflection and for refreshing our business models.